Hello, Nai Z of Planet Earth. My name is Zai Neondemus, and in this episode we're going to be talking about spirit forms for the Nai Z. Spirit forms are a very complex topic to get into, and there's a lot to it. So you should also take a look at things like Spirit Forming 101, which can be found on Podlair Planet, if you haven't already. But in general, spirit forms can be thought of as anything that affects you that is a part of natural law. This includes things in your environment, things that are in your inner workings, and they cannot be understood directly or directly perceived. There are also universal spirit forms that we're all affected by, and there are also spirit forms that you have. And so right now we're going to be talking about some personal spirit forms for the Nai Z. All Mojos have what we call pod power spirit forms, but as a Nai Z, they are going to be very unique to you. You have pod power spirit forms that relate to your Nai, Z, Jai, and V, and then you're also going to have what we call elevator spirit forms. That involves what you think of yourself consciously, as well as autonomous entities that exist in your psyche's unconscious. All humans have this, but they're going to be unique to you as a Nai Z. We have what we call the ritual ladder. And these are basically the kinds of rituals that humans have to go through in order to develop themselves and just come through the general experience of life in being a heroic human. As a Nai Z, these rituals will be universal rituals that all humans experience, but they're going to be different for you because of your powers. What's momentum for you? What's modulation for you? This is going to affect what the variables are of that ritual, which makes it unique for you. Now let's get into pod power spirit forms. You have up here, we already talked about the Truth Hunter character, and this is in general a reference to having Nai consciously. So there are actually 8 of them. There are 8 different kinds of Truth Hunter characters. Yours is unique. You have a special kind of Truth Hunter character that we call the Single System Surfer. The Single System Surfer is the Nai pod power spirit form specific to the Nai Z. There's a lot to this, and there's going to be a lot of filmings on it, but the short version is that it'll be easier for you to engage your Nai when you imagine yourself as being a creature that's made of it. And a Single System Surfer is that. It's a creature that's made of Nai, and it's native to using it as its elemental power. Next, you have the power of Z, but specific to you is going to be the Natural Law Administrator. This relates to Z being your second power. It's a momentum power, but it's in that unique position, which makes it that Natural Law Administrator, a special form of Logic Pilot. Next we have Jai, and this is going to be your healing tower, but your specific form of healing tower is the Soulful Scientist. And then finally we have V, which is a real world gatherer, and for you this is going to be the Extreme Exemplar, a very particular form of Polar V, and it's very powerful when it's used. So altogether we have Single System Surfer, Natural Law Administrator, Soulful Scientist, and Extreme Exemplar. Now we're going to get into the elevator spirit forms. First we have what we call the apparatus, which is what you think of you. Every human has an apparatus, but for you as a Nai Z, it's going to be made up primarily of your conscious powers. Nai, Z, Jai, and V. It's going to be what you know, and so it's going to be those 4 powers, mainly weighted on Nai and Z. So your whole Phenomena, your whole psyche, and all of the spirit forms that are within you, that's what you are, the all of you. But when you think of me as kind of just your conscious self, then we're just talking about the conscious portions of your psyche, which are Nai, Z, Jai, and V. And that's what we mean when we say apparatus. The apparatus interacts with the world, it thinks to itself, it also goes in and communicates with the unconscious spirit forms. So it's kind of the intermediary, going out into the world and going inside. The Mazout spirit form is what you think of consciously, not just you directly, but it's the you that you show yourself to the rest of the world. So there's always going to be a difference between the you that you know of yourself consciously, and then there's the you that you show to the world. So for a Nai Z, that's going to have a lot to do with the SS index and other things that relate to the bubble that you're in, and how their powers are being interpreted by the world. Because there would be what is most natively good to your for your peak pathway, and then there's also various workarounds, things that you've done in your life to make a place for yourself. These workarounds and adjustments, these ways of doing things that help you make a place for your peak pathway, that's your Mazut. Your Mazut is very important, and it's not just meant to disguise your true self. It's meant to be a conduit for you to the world. But you and the world have to make a negotiation, and that Mazut that you form is the negotiation, that compromise between what you see of yourself and how the world interacts with you. Next is the Daryu. The Daryu has to do with things like emergency programming, difficult stuff that you don't feel like dealing with, and therefore it's in the unconscious. The Daryu is the first unconscious spirit form. As a Naizi, this is going to deal mainly with your modulation powers the most. So when we talk about Zhai and Vi, but also your super modulation in your unconscious Ji and Vi. When these kinds of things come up, your Daryu deals with a lot of that which you're not able to deal with. But the more that you're able to deal with and take upon yourself, the less the Daryu has to do for you, and you are able to not be as possessed by it. All of these spirit forms can possess you if you don't take control of them. For example, a Naizi that is either not doing their modulation powers at all, or they're overdoing their modulation powers to a point where they've given themselves over to their modulation powers, that's going to make the Daryu have too much influence over you. Proper influence, for example, is when you use things like keening to teach you, to help you go to smart places. The Daryu is a good teacher, but it teaches you when you're going to places that are not good for you. So it's about emergency. It's about warning and about keeping you from danger. And once you get into danger, then it's there to help you get out of it. Next is the Other. This is your metaphysical lover, your unconscious genius, your muse, and this is going to be the 4 powers that you don't have consciously. And it can also come across as being a creature or a being or a concept like travel or adventure, but since you're an IZ, then it's going to be comprised of Ni, Zai, Ji, and Vi. The one that you will recognize the most right away is going to be the Ni and Zai, because these powers are the most inspiring to your top 2 powers. So in your psyche, in the unconscious, whenever Ni and Zai are stimulated, it will give you this connection to your other, your metaphysical lover. That's how you make love to your other half, through communing in a way that it understands. In the unconscious, it's not going to understand the technical stuff. It'll understand being spoken to in a spiritual, artistic, and personified way. Finally, we have the Fumasta, and that's you in your master form. This is something that you're always going to be trying to aspire to be more and more and better at. You're never going to fully arrive at the Fumasta. You're always in a process of reaching out, traveling to, kind of arriving there. So as a Naizi, this is going to relate to your composition relationships. So for you, this is going to relate to when your Nai and your Vi are working as one. And also your Z and your Ji are working as one, and so on and so forth with all the rest of their powers, in such a way where all of your priorities in the conscious and unconscious are working together in unity and productive harmony. And it's going to be done in the storyline that favors you, and that's how it's supposed to go. But this is something that only works when you have all of your powers going. So this is a very high level thing, and it takes mastery to do, but it's what we were all built for. But that's not the end. All of this mastery escalates to merging with the shiny baby. And as a Naizi, you have a complete package of perfection, of purity, of total completeness that you can merge with and reboot yourself whenever you need to. So you never lose your Naiziness, no matter how lost or confused or locked up you've gotten, or what the world has done to you. You can always reboot your Naizi nature and spirit, because the shiny baby will take you into its womb and you'll come back out all pure and loved. The other spirit forms we can get into more later, but in short, we have the tribe of humanity, and that relates to all mojos with you being a Naizi within the tribe of humanity. Then you have Gaia, which is the spirit form of the earth and all of its biospheres, which is very important to all mojos, because as a Naizi, you're going to have a special relationship to Gaia. as you are a Gaian Naizi. You are going to know Gaia through the storyline of the Naizi, which is a very special way of knowing something. Then you have the cosmos, which is the spirit form of the entire universe and beyond, which made us. And then you have the spirit of energy evolving, which is the energy that was evolving before the Big Bang, after the Big Bang, and everything in between, and so on. As a Naizi, you are part of this. You are one with the great energy evolving. So know yourself, grow yourself, and save the world, and you're definitely going to need spirit forms to do this.